Hello everyone, thank you for coming along. If you'd like to say hello, you can use the chat to say hello and tell us where you are joining us from. Thank you. Lovely. Hello, hello. Welcome, Rosemary. Hello, Barbara. Maya. Hello. Hi, Sari. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Miriam. Coming live from Turkey. Nicola, welcome. Hola, from Spain. Brilliant. I'm so pleased that Beatrice and Eugenia can join us today. Hello from Greece. Hello, Romania. Guten Tag, Alicia. Lovely. Okay, so I think we're nearly ready to start. We have some more joining us. We have, let's see, we have 25 people so far have joined us. I know there are plenty more joining. So we shall make a start in just a moment. I'm going to hand over to Beatrice and Eugenia to say hello. But as I say, there'll be lots of people joining us as we go. So I shall just stop sharing my screen here and pass over, ready to get started.
Yes, perfect. Hello, hello everyone. So let's get started. Welcome everyone to this inclusive app design workshop. It's so nice to see in the comments, to see all the people connecting from everywhere. So before letting our experts introduce themselves and dive into this workshop, we wanted to introduce quickly Code Week. What is Code Week? So you will recognize me with my orange t-shirt and also my colleague Eurinia, who is in orange there. So we are part of the Code Week team, and so we are here to support the whole community in all the activities of Code Week. So what is Code Week? As you probably know, since you're here, Code Week is an initiative aiming to celebrate coding, computational thinking and creativity all over Europe and beyond, to organize and take part in activities related to coding. So this is a grassroots initiative, as it is animated by volunteer teachers and educators. So now we are nearing the end of Code Week, because it has started almost 2 weeks ago on October 9th, and it ends this Sunday on October 24th. So far, there are more than 60,000 activities that have already been organized and are also registered on the Code Week website. So we hope that today you will all find inspiration to also organize your own activities. So this year, we have asked our partners, industry partners, to create and imagine some challenges so that are activities that are engaging and easy for educators to implement in all levels of their classrooms. So Apple, it is a Code Week industry partners. It has worked with the Code Week for some years now, and it has produced a very fun activity that you will discover today. And yeah, without further ado, I give the floor to Steve to start with this workshop.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Beatrice. Okay, so we shall make a start. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm joined by my two colleagues here, Miriam and Matt. And to introduce you to Miriam, Miriam is a digital media and coding teacher who teaches creativity and coding across schools in her local community. She's amazingly talented and has loads of experience of working with children and students to get them excited about technology. She has a role of technology enhanced learning across Cork Education in Ireland, and she's excited about the possibilities of using technology to reach all learners. So I'm now going to hand over to Miriam to introduce Matt.
Hi, I'm introducing Matt. So Matt runs the codehub.ie and is also has experience in developing apps. So he has lots of industry experience and has also run previous Code Week EU events. And I'm going to hand over to him. He will introduce Steve.
Thanks, Miriam. Yeah, Dr. Steve Muntz is an experienced educator and author. He's taught primary and secondary schools in the UK and covered many roles, including head of computing and senior leader. He's proud to be an Apple Distinguished Educator and Apple Professional Learning Specialist.
Lovely. Thanks, Matt. So just to say, at any time you want to join in, feel free to add in the chat. You can sort of, add in any questions you have, or if you want to share some examples of how you've been doing that. I can see from the list of participants some familiar names of some wonderful educators who have been using these tools already. So again, feel free to share examples of how you've been using those. Today, what we're going to ask is just to help with the presentation, to maybe turn off your video and mute your microphones to begin with. And then that will help us as we try and share this presentation across all our different spaces and time zones too. But do feel free to join in the chat. Today we are aiming it to be hands-on, so you can follow along. If you have an iPad, feel free to try out the activities. On the iPad, we will be using the Swift Playgrounds app and also the Keynote app as the main tool for us to create an app design. However, if you don't have one of those, don't worry. You can either try using the online version at iCloud.com, or even in fact, just follow along and prototype using paper. Paper again is just perfect for you to write on and to draw ideas. And also we can see how you could use that in addition to how you can use all the technology and tools in the classroom. So the whole point of today is to get you excited about using these resources and to give you resources that you can then go and try in your classroom. As Beatrice has just introduced us, we're here and glad to be part of Code Week, and we're so excited to learn more about the different things that are happening within Code Week. It's been a great 2 weeks so far. Just to let you know, this inclusive app design resource has been created by Apple, and it's made available in 12 languages across Europe. And they are free to access on the Apple Teacher website. And we shall share the web link with you in a moment. Also, this activity is done in conjunction with the European Commission. It has been designated as an official challenge to Europe Code Week, and it is also featured in a new MOOC, which is really exciting, and it is in Module 3 of the Online Bootcamp MOOC, which has been organised by European Schoolnet and the European Commission. It is also a Europe-wide activity. So in addition to today and our webinar, there are many more activities happening across Europe to celebrate Code Week. Over 50,000 activities have been registered already. So it's a perfect chance to get students excited and involved in coding and help them to begin to create an app, learn about important digital skills, and really help to solve a problem that they really care about. So let's get started with our today's activities. We are going to create an inclusive app design. So in our time together, we shall do this with hands-on, and then you can go and try this with your students. And when we say inclusive, we want to make people feel welcome and considered. And when we say accessibility, it's about how we can design something so that it can work for individual people. So today we're really going to think about making that inclusive app and think about the accessibility of how everyone can make and have access to it. All of the ideas and resources you can find today on the Apple Teacher website. And here is the link. So if you follow that link, you will get to the Apple Teacher Teachers Center. And within the Apple Teacher Learning Center, you will then find all these resources we're going to use today. So it means you can go straight away into your classrooms and with your students and get started using these things. This is the timeline we shall follow. So on that web page, there is the different parts which we will follow, and you can see some suggested times which go along with that timeline. Today we are going to show you different parts of this. So sometimes we will spend maybe a little more time, maybe some less time, but hopefully you can see how you could use this in your situation. Okay, so I'm now going to hand over to Miriam, who's going to take us through introducing the activity. Thanks, Miriam.
Thanks, Steve. So I'm going to go through the activity and how we're going to introduce it and how you can follow along with us today. So I'm just going to take over the sharing. So the activity that we are looking at is inclusive app design. So we want to create an app that can be used by everyone and an app that will hopefully solve a problem or help a specific group of people. So we have a few personas here that we want you to think about. So the first one is someone whose English is not their first language. We know you're going to be doing this with students, and maybe someone has moved into your class from another country. How would this app work with a user? A second persona might be someone who has a visual impairment. How might your app help them in their day-to-day lives? And the third user is someone that has arthritis. So this could be someone older or someone much younger, but they mightn't be able to fully use the app. So what additional features might you use to make this more accessible to them? These are some permanent, temporary, and situational cases here that we have. So if we're looking at touch, this could be someone that has one arm. So they might just have one arm and they need to be able to use your app. But alternatively, they might be a new parent who only has one arm because they're trying to juggle kids and all the various different things, or they might have an arm injury. Similarly, with our other personas, we have people that might have hearing difficulties. They can be someone that is deaf, or more temporary, they might just have an ear infection that will soon recover, but they need to have some changes to the app so that they can access it. Again, in C, you could have someone that's a distracted driver or someone that is blind. When it comes to speaking, it could be dealing with someone that just cannot hear or is non-verbal and they cannot speak, or someone that has a heavy accent. So might need additional help in understanding Steve's or maths, and this app might have a few additional changes to make it more inclusive to you. So I'm going to hand back to Steve, who is going to talk about brainstorming those ideas.
Brilliant. Thank you, Miriam. So what we're doing now is we're going through this timeline. Miriam has introduced the idea of we are making an inclusive app. So now let's get started with coming up with our ideas for our app. So this afternoon I was working with a school and the children were aged 10 years old. And we tried this out where they were trying out brainstorming and coming up with ideas for their app. And it was hard work. They had to really think very carefully. So how can we help them think of ideas? Okay, so the brainstorm is where you might get your students to come up with a list of topics. And from that list, they might then choose where they think an app might help. They then also might think about those personas. So we thought about today about people who maybe had difficulty with their vision, or maybe people, as Miriam mentioned, who had difficulty with their touch. So it's important to get the children to get lots of ideas together. We want them to be able to create an app to solve a real world problem. Therefore, it's meaningful to them. It's something they can do. One idea is the COP26 summit. This begins in Scotland in the UK very soon. And world leaders are coming together to talk about climate change. So maybe this is something the children are passionate about and want to create an app for. Is it something about climate change? Another idea is to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. So from the United Nations, they have identified 17 areas which are Sustainable Development Goals. So again, this could help the children think of an idea for their app. Is it maybe to end poverty? Is it to do with hunger? How could they take one of these big ideas and choose something which they feel they can act upon? So Miriam's going to help us think about that.
Thanks, Steve. So these are 4 ideas that I give to the students that I'm working with. So I primarily now work with students aged 15 and 16. And when we're creating our app prototypes, I found that it is easier to give them themes. So when we're talking about inclusion, these might be 4 themes that you might use. So an app that will help their community or their environment. So this could be a cleanup app. I've seen a few of these from students. trying to help clean up or gather groups to clean up their local community and raise awareness of littering in their local community. It might be an app for inclusion. So in one case, I had an example of a group of students who wanted to raise awareness that their school was an Irish speaking school. So they wanted to create an app that would basically educate the world about why that was, and then creativity. So when I give these 4 themes to students, usually one of them sparks some kind of idea in their head, which leads to more discussion.
Lovely, thank you. So we want you to think about a problem that you care about. Okay, so start thinking, is there something of the environment that you want to think about? Is it something about including people, which you want to have as your idea? So we're going to try and get those ideas together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Matt, and he's going to help us brainstorm ideas, and we're going to ask you to contribute your different ideas.
Exactly. We've just pasted a little quiz in the chat, so feel free to go to that, or feel free to have a look at our little Mentimeter quiz right here. So go on and hit the love button if you're there, and we can get started generating some of those ideas and building on what Miriam and Steve have been talking about. We'll just give you another second to join. All right, so what is a problem that you care about or that your students might care about? And we'll give you a minute to collect a few answers here. Okay, some good ones to start off. We've got older people, we've got the elderly, we've got community, fake news. Sure, your students are very concerned about no new followers on TikTok. Or maybe that's you. Maybe you're the teacher on TikTok. All right, let's see if a couple large themes emerging here. All right, so this is just a little exercise that you might run in your classroom as well when you're doing this brainstorming. Steve, you want to take it back and go through? I think we've got a few clear winners here.
Yeah, so that's great. So can you see how we did an activity there where we used a tool, we used Mentimeter to gather those ideas, okay? So looking at the word cloud, every time a word is mentioned, it appears larger on the screen. So you can see there's lots of different things in there that children could use to gain ideas from. Or you could maybe with your class say, we're going to just choose the most popular one there, okay? So it's another way of us gathering ideas of how to brainstorm that idea for the app. So in the middle of all of those ideas, it seems one of the ideas was elderly people or older people in the community. And what we're going to do today is we're going to model an idea for you, but you could try on your iPad in your space an idea today that you would like to do. But if you'd like to follow along with our idea, then that's great. So when we were discussing this, Miriam and Matt and I, we were talking about elderly or older people because we thought a lot of our students could identify with maybe grandparents or older people they know in their community. And they're the people who might have problems with maybe touch or arthritis or mobility and meeting other people. So that got me thinking, and it reminded me of a man that I meet when I walk the dog. So this man is called Alan, and he goes every day on the same dog route to walk his dog. He has trouble remembering. He has trouble remembering his medicines and when to take them. He has trouble remembering when he goes shopping, which things he needs to buy. He has trouble remembering about meeting up with other people. So I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could make an app which would be useful to him, that would be accessible so he could use it with his touch, whether it would be inclusive so that he could then feel part of a bigger group of people who might go and walk their dogs together, for example. But my main thought was, I really hope he is careful and can remember his medicine. So I'm going to define our app, and I'm going to say we shall make an app for an elderly person, and that app can have lots of features, but one thing I really want to include is something to help them remember their appointments and their medicines. Okay, so we've gone from huge ideas of climate change and helping all these different things down to bring it down to something which is more personal that the students will care about. And then we've defined it in a statement here. So now we're going to try and get more ideas about what should go into our app. So we have said this is the app we're going to make, but what could we put into our app? So we could use paper and get the students to write on the paper all their different ideas. We can also use our iPads. So in the classroom, we have used before the Notes app and the Numbers app as tools to use for getting those ideas together. So I'm going to demonstrate now using the Notes app and how we could use that. So again, if you have an iPad, feel free to follow along. I'm going to open up the Notes app on my iPad. If you've used it before, then you'll know that we have, for example, on the right-hand side, the space for the paper. So over here is our paper space. And over here is a list of the notes which I've made. If you'd like more space, there are two arrows at the top, which make that fill the whole of the page. Okay, so if you can see at the top there, there's an arrow to make it bigger. So now the students could just tap on the page and start typing. So they could say, this is my app idea. And it could be, example, for an elderly person. And they could just then type as many ideas as possible. So it could be, for example, for medicine. It could be for appointments. It could be for dog walking. So get the children just to come up and the students to think of as many ideas as possible. They could also use a stylus or an Apple Pencil, and they can tap on the screen and start to draw. So for example, I could write here, my elderly person, and then I could start to write all my different ideas around it. Okay? So again, that's another way of using the stylus to do that. So here's one I made earlier. Okay. So for example, you can see the children could either type lots of ideas or just draw them. But what we want to do is come up with lots of ideas of what the app could do. And then they can choose those things to go into their actual app. Okay, so again, if you've got notes, feel free to try it out and to create your different ideas. And one thing you can do with the children and the students is to give them a time limit. So you might say, all I want you to do is do that, but you only have a short time. So what I can do on the iPad is I could have the notes here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a timer on the screen as well. So this is a real advantage of using the technology together. At the top, in my latest version of the iPad software, I am using iOS 15. I can tap on the top. I can choose the split screen. I can choose the timer. And now you can see I can have a timer going next to it. I can even adjust to make more space. Okay, so there's lots of things we could do, but that is one idea of brainstorming, getting all the ideas down, drawing the ideas and having the timer alongside to help the children and the students to focus. So far we've introduced it. Miriam has told us about our problem. We brainstormed ideas with Matt and then come up with lots of ideas to go into our app. We now need to get planning. So again, we've got to try and think about who is using our app. What is it that they will do with the app? It is no good for me to make an app for Alan, which has lots of features that he will never use. We need to focus. What do we want to put into the app? So let's have a quick start to think about other apps that you know. Here on the screen are lots of app icons. In the chat, would you like to write the names of any of those apps that you know? So you can use the chat. If you know the name of the app, you can type the name of the app just in the chat. Let's see, how many do you know? That's right, yes. Slack, Kahoot, Disney, Twitter, Keynote, GarageBand, Bitmoji, Kahoot, Minecraft, very good, Duolingo, iMovie. So this is easy, isn't it, for some of them? YouTube, yes. But are there some that you don't recognize? Brilliant. So there are lots of different apps there and you know those, you recognize those. So with the students, we will try and get them to think of an app icon, and that app icon will help them think about the colors they are going to use. It will help them think about what their app will do, the purpose of the app. Okay. Now, just in case you were wondering, we don't have a lot of time today, so just to mention, here is the apps. We have Swift Playgrounds and Keynote and Bitmoji. We have Duolingo, and the orange circle is Headspace, a meditation app. Duolingo at the end, and you can see we have lots of apps, but what about the three at the bottom? These three. So looking at the app icon pictures, can you guess what they do? Okay, so we have three pictures. They are all using greens or different shades of green, but what do they do? So yes, we have ears in the center. Too Good To Go, that's correct. That is the app on the right-hand side. And you can see also one which has a picture of a person in a wheelchair. So today we don't have very much time. So I shall tell you the answers. Wheel map is for helping people in wheelchairs find their way around. So the icon of a wheelchair and also the green background helps us know that it is about a map, maybe. The hear me well in the middle is ears. It does look like ears, and that is to help people hear better. And finally, the too good to go is about food waste, but maybe the icon doesn't help you. So you can get your students to go and find lots of different pictures of apps. There are a load of apps which are featured in the App Store today, and you can go and see about those different apps. Now, those 3 apps there are featured in this Code the Difference selection, so you can go and find out more. But think again of how you might do this with your students. So what we shall do now is you are going to design your own app icon, but we are only going to give you a little bit of time to do that. You could give your students a template. So you could say to your students, here you are, this is the template, draw or go and find some pictures for your app. And the reason why you're doing this now, and what Miriam and Lindsay and other people have found, is if the students design their app icon, it helps them start to think about the colours they're going to use. It helps them think about the purpose of the app, and it helps them start to get a feel for what the app might look like. So let's do this together. Can you please make a new blank slide? Okay. So if you are using your iPad, you can go and open up the Keynote app. And at the very top, it has a plus to make a new presentation. And you can choose a theme. So if you're familiar with the Keynote, go ahead. If you've not used Keynote before, open Keynote, press the plus to make a new presentation and choose a theme. And today I shall just use the white presentation. On here, it has some writing, which I will just delete. So I shall tap on a word and then press the delete above it. So I am making my page nice and clear. So tap and delete, tap and delete. Okay. So now we are ready to start to make our app icon. I am going to add a background shape. If you want to add something new, press the plus. And then we will choose the shapes menu. That is this one, which is a square with a circle behind. So I have pressed the plus and then the shapes menu, and I'm going to choose the square with the round corners to be my app background. I'll make it bigger by dragging the corner to make it bigger. So I could just make one on this page, or your students could make lots of ideas. They could put one and add another one. And then they could add another one if they want. They could do many on the same page. Okay, it's up to you. You can make as many on the page. I'm just going to show you one. So we have added our background. If you add something new, we press add or the plus. To change it, the format is the paintbrush. So the paintbrush, I could then choose the style and I can pick a different color. Pink. I think I shall go for pink today. So that is our background. Let's now add a shape to go on it. Okay, so add something new. The paintbrush lets us change it. So add a new object. And in here, there are lots of different shapes. So if we were making an app for today, the children were thinking of an app to help them with their maths. So they were looking at these shapes. You might be looking for an app to help you with your music. So you could choose these shapes. But this takes us a long time to search. So let's be quicker and search using the magnifying glass. So our app is for an old person, an elderly person. So I shall search for people and look for a picture. I think I shall choose this one for an elderly person who is exercising. Okay, so you can add lots of different shapes if you want to change how they look. Then you can again change the color to make it stand out. Maybe I want this to be not about walking, but maybe I'd like a picture of, see, I shall delete that, maybe medicine. So let's search for medicine. And I could choose the picture of the pill. And then format, choose another color. Okay. So it's great to have the children come up with ideas for an app icon. It helps them to do it quickly, to put the colors together and maybe start to think about the images they will use. Again, we could use the timer to limit them. And in the example, it says, give them just 1 minute to create an app icon. Okay, so really quick. Okay, so there's lots of different things you can do to get the students thinking about planning their outfit, planning their app. Okay, I'm now going to hand over to Miriam, who's going to take us through the stages of prototyping our app. Now we have a plan, we're going to start to make the actual app design. So over to you, Miriam.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I have to remind myself we're planning an app, not an outfit, which is wonderful. So I'm going to go through the prototyping stage. So you see the slide previews on the left-hand side, and you might spot that we have pre-made some of these. But this stage looks at creating the prototype. So it's my favorite stage. You do have to put the work in beforehand with the planning and the prototype, planning and brainstorming, but then you get to the prototyping, and this takes time. So we've given 20 minutes for this one. It might take a class or two if you want to spread it out. But in this, they will create 1 to 3 screens and they will get them working as a prototype. So following the steps that Steve has already told you, if you could insert a new slide, you can put this under your icon if you've been creating the icon. I have a new blank slide in here. And I am going to go up to my shapes. First, I need to click edit. So I'm going to go first up to my shapes, and one of the shapes, which you may know if you use Keynote a lot, if you don't, there is a phone shape. And this phone shape is really useful because you can just put it in and it will work like a phone when it's in there. So I'm going to just click the square and the circle here, and I'm going to search, and I'm going to search for a phone. So students can put in their phone, look using these blue dots, they can make it bigger and they can then position it wherever they want to be. I find sometimes students really like the fact they can then change the color of that phone to any color that they want. So if you do want a pink phone or a purple phone or a yellow phone or whatever color phone you want, it's the paintbrush and you go up in here. So you just click and you can change that fill. So if I want a red phone today, I can have a red phone. And once they have one phone in, you can then click over here on your navigator on the side and duplicate that phone. So I am actually going to do one more thing before I duplicate. I'm just going to put in a bar with a Wi-Fi and a battery symbol in there just to give it more of a phone feel for me. So I'm going to put in a square. So this is in my basic shapes. So everything in this prototype is built within Keynote and with your shapes and text boxes. So I'm going to pop in a little square there at the top. And I'm going to put in some symbols that might be familiar to you. So Wi-Fi is one of them. And everybody needs Wi-Fi or likes Wi-Fi. So I'm going to pop that in there and resize it as small as I can. And another one is going to be a battery symbol. Again, you kind of need a battery to run your app. So I'm going to make a white little battery symbol. And make that nice and small. So these are actually not as small as I would have them, but for the sake of doing this as fast as possible, I'm going to put them in there. I'm going to make these black and I'm going to make that bar white. So again, using that paintbrush will allow me to change that. So another thing I might want to do is change the background color of my screen. So I'm going to just put in a box in there or a square and change it to blue. Now you'll notice this goes in the order in which we're creating. So this will take over my Wi-Fi symbol and my menu at the top. But if I go up to this paintbrush, I can click on arrange and just send it to the back. So I can just move my finger on the slider and send it backwards. So I'm thinking about this app for our older members of the community and some things that they might find useful. So I'm going to put in a few other symbols. I'm going to go up here and go with our rounded square here, and you'll see now this, if I put this in, this is not going to be accessible because you can't see it. It is the exact same shade of blue as my background. So I'm going to change it to like a navy color, and I'm going to go into style and change it to a darker blue color. And when I have it where I want it to be, I'm actually going to just add one additional thing there. I'm just going to add a shadow underneath this, and I'm going to put 4 of these. So when you are creating your screen, do be mindful of your inclusion and your accessibility. So maybe this person, if we think back to my personas, can't speak English and this has languages in there, or maybe they can't read. I want this to be visual, so they want to have the symbols in there as well as the text. So I'm going to make sure that it has those in a moment. All I'm doing is copying and pasting these just to make sure that they're the same size. And one of the things that we want are to be able to help the users of our app do is keep track of their schedules. So this might be appointments. Or it could be some things to do with medical needs or appointments.
Agora veríamos, nós temos que curso sobre que mas curso de inglês, já. É.
And then the other things that we have is like a social We want them to be able to communicate. Just gonna go bubble, should come up my speech bubble. And the last thing is going to be a profile. So they can just put in some information in there. Person. It helps if you get rid of the text that you had in previously. So that style you'll see in the other pages that we have created previously, that will run through them now. One thing that I didn't do and I kind of noticed was I should have left more space in between these to allow my text box to go in there. So text boxes can easily be put into Keynote as well, in with your shapes and basic and text. So what I would do is, for again, accessibility, have that symbol in a nice big button and also have the text in there as well. So I'm going to just put in the text for all of them. One question I get from students all the time once they put in that text box is how they can change the size of the text. And if you want to do that, it's okay. I think that I would actually go up to my paintbrush as well, and you will see the size of the text is in there. That could be home. I would have, like, you'll see the one that we have created earlier has a welcome message in, and it also has a landing page. So those ones, our user clicks on the calendar, it might bring to additional menu options. If you like what I assume might have created all of this, they might have done a little bit and they might want to change bits of it. I would duplicate this over on the side that we have different copies of it. So if I do now, we have a calendar. I could use the same button shape and I could replace that or dental appointments or a book club for social. I could replace it with anything and it would look the same. So if somebody was navigating through it, there wouldn't be too much difference and be a very easy app for me to get to. So we did work on this over the week and earlier this week and created so they look a bit like this. So this here would, waiting for it to catch up. Okay, for a second on mine. So in here I have our screen. So this is where they would cut.
I think Miriam, you know what? I think we're losing you a little bit. We're getting a
Then
kind of
they
bad
go
connection
through
there.
Sorry.
I think we've got a bit of a bad connection with Miriam, unfortunately. You're right there, Steve. Did you want to show some of the other prototypes? This is a great session. It's a real shame because we're losing some of it. Did you want to show some of the other prototype screens that we had? You know, examples of how you might develop this in Keynote.
Yes, I shall continue. So what Miriam's setting up there is fantastic because it's showing us the way she set up the different icons. So let me just share my screen here. But no, that's fantastic the way it's just, I can see it developing. And what I love watching is as Miriam's putting it together, you can just see the process she's going through as she then creates what you can see. So what we have is she's designing her app there, she's got a home page, and that then can be sort of developed with all these different screens that can be put together. So there's the screen just being developed in terms of, you know, the different parts, the social, the calendar, and all those things. And then we can start to link those together. So what we're going to do in a moment is Matt's going to show us some of the coding part of this. And then Miriam and I will be sharing you a bit more on the keynote. We're going to split into two groups. But just to show you, what you can do is from your first page, you can add a link to go from one page to the next. So for example, here, this could be the main menu. And then this could take you to your appointments. What we do is we do a link from one item to another. So from the calendar, if I tap on the picture or the symbol, you can see the word link at the end. And then you can link to a particular slide. So I can link to what I know is the slide, the next slide, which has the appointments on. And I'm going to choose that one. Okay. So now what happens is when you come to play your presentation, it means that you can tap on that picture. So if I tap on the calendar, it links to that slide. So for the students, it's brilliant because it looks just like a real app acting, you know, as a tap on a button, it goes to the next page. So Miriam and I will be doing more of that in our keynote room. I'm going to hand over to Matt, who's going to take us through some of the coding now as well. Okay, so Matt's going to share with us the Swift playgrounds, and then Miriam and I will then follow up in our room with the keynote tools. So I'm going to hand over to you, Matt, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure thing. And in fact, one educator here in Ireland had a student produce this keynote prototype where they used a couple of different shells. You know, we have the phone that Miriam showed you with the app interface inside of it. They put a lot of thought into, you know, the appointments, what was going to be upcoming, and also the flow of the app as well, which is huge. It's really nice that you can invest, you know, much less tiers anyway when it comes to development in Keynote. You know, drop the shapes on your slide, link it to the next slide, and actually build out a whole nice flow that you can actually get users to try out and see, does this feel like an app that I might use? And that brings us to, once you've done all that work, that brings us to, well, what does it take now to make that an actual app? And you know, Miriam said that that's the part, prototyping, that's the part she loves with Keynote. This is the part I love and get excited about, is opening up Xcode, opening up Swift Playgrounds, and actually starting to implement some of this stuff. Because once we have this amazing design and prototype, and we've tested out the experience, and people have kind of validated our ideas, or maybe we've changed it as a result of how we see them using our Keynote prototype. Now the next step is to turn that into an actual functioning app. And the way we do that is with code. You know, and code is what we use to build iPhone and iPad apps. It tells the person, it tells the phone rather, what to show the person using the app, how it should behave. It's the real brains of your app. So we're going to use a tool called Swift Playgrounds to try out some ideas for our prototype and start moving towards an actual app. So I've prepared a playground for you to follow along or inspect later. If you like, it'll still be around later. You can subscribe to the feed at the link in the QR code on the screen. And we're going to go take a look at what's involved in the brains of our app if we take a prototype, like something that Lindsay's student threw together, and turn it into code. All right, so here, first things first, I'm going to paste in this link to the playground feed, not the text, link to the playground feed, so that if you want to follow along, I'll actually show you where to get this and how to add it if you're on an iPad. Swift Playgrounds is also available for the Mac if you're interested. But this is the keynote that student of Lindsay's developed. So we had that original screen, and what we decided to do was to tackle this particular screen. So we need to focus on one piece. When we're coding, we can't code everything all at once. It'd be very confusing, very difficult, and we'd get very frustrated very quickly. So what we did is we said, you know what, we're going to implement this one screen and just try out how our medication screen is going to work. So I've got Swift Playgrounds here. Let's pull this up. Running on an iPad. Now, if you go to the link in that QR code or that I pasted into the chat, you'll see a page that looks like this. On your iPad, you'll be able to just go down here and tap on the subscribe button down here. And that will open up Swift Playgrounds for you. Swift Playgrounds is a free download from the App Store. You just go to the App Store and search for Swift Playgrounds. It's got the lovely white icon with the red Swift bird. And it'll ask you if you want to subscribe to the Playground feed. So you can hit subscribe. This is free. There's no cost involved in this particular subscription. And you'll find this, if we come back to it later, when we launch Swift Playgrounds on our own, we'll come to a screen that looks a bit like this. Yours might be empty if you've not created any Swift Playgrounds yet. And down here is where we get new playgrounds added to our app. Now I've added the subscription. If I scroll down a little bit, I can see there's a whole bunch of playgrounds. This is the one that we're interested in, the Europe Code Week 2021. And we can just tap the Get button. And that'll download a new copy of this playground for me to play around with. This is one of my favorite features of Swift Playgrounds, is that if I mess up and I royally make a giant mess of this playground, I can always just download another one and start from scratch. So we're going to tap on this and open it up. It's going to ask me if I really want to open it up because it comes from a third party. And you can see that we've got a design that looks very similar to the Keynote prototype. Maybe it's stretched a little bit. We could have a word with our designer and fix what we've implemented in a storyboard. But it's not a bad start. And now we can start playing around with it and see how it's going to work when we actually start adding new data to it. So instead of just Keynote shapes, this is actually implemented in a storyboard that will run on an iPhone or an iPad. And you could ship this to the App Store and have people download this app and start using it. So we've taken that next step, and we've actually done a bit of work behind the scenes to get us set up. So let's go take a look. We're going to tap through the next page and see how we've started adding data to back this view, because we can see that we have our different pills listed. We have an icon for the pill. We have the days highlighted here that we need to take the pill on and the time that we need to take the pill at. So we'll hit next page. And it talks about adding some brains. So we have our design. We need to represent that data on the screen over here somehow. And with code, we use these things called properties. And we've defined them here. This is actual Swift code that developers use to write real iPhone and iPad apps that run on your device today. I love when the kids start asking in the classroom, okay, does that mean Fruit Ninja or whatever the popular game is now, or TikTok, they've implemented it with this kind of code? It's like, yeah, likely this is the code that they've used. So if we're going to add a new pill, say we're going to actually try this out and say, oh, do you know what? I need to remember, my friend Alan needs to remember to take his iron pill at midday. So we'll type in iron here. And then we can also capture the pill time, which we said midday. So all right, so we'll put in 12 o'clock. I'll go hit this button to dismiss the keyboard. And now I can hit run my code. And we can see, okay, this is how the app's going to behave when we actually start adding data to it. And the nice thing about this, we could mock this up in Keynote, but this is actually suitable for a real app, the way we have this data being added here. If we decided, actually, oh, do you know what? I forgot. I've also got to add my aspirin. And I'll take that maybe half an hour later. I'll hit run my code, and it adds the new pill there as well. So we've started to take just what was the kernel of an idea and then turned into a beautiful design and flow. And we've actually started to implement it. This could become an app that could actually go and help somebody like Alan based on maybe a conversation you had while you were out walking your dog. Now we're going to separate into two different rooms in a second, and we're going to go a little bit deeper and look at even more code, because as you can see, this is great that we've got the pill name and the pill time showing up right, but there are a couple of other elements here that we also need to back with a bit of code. So we'll go take a little bit more in-depth look in just a bit in our breakout rooms.
Okay, thank you, Matt. So what we're going to do, as Matt's just explained, is we're either going to, you can either do a bit more of Keynote. So with Miriam and I, we're going to stay in this room and we're going to go through some more of that linking to make it look like an app prototype. So Miriam's going to take us through what she was showing us earlier about linking those pages together. Or if you'd like to learn a bit more about the coding with Matt, then you're going to join a new room, which is for coding. So
Exactly.
Matt will start a new room in a moment, and then hopefully we can get you all to join the coding room if you'd like to join that room. But if you want to just do a bit more Keynote and that prototype, then you'll stay in this room. Okay?
Excellent. So for those of you who want to take a little bit more in-depth look at this prototype we've created with Swift Playgrounds, there's going to be a room called Coding, and you'll be able to join that from the participants list.
Okay. So if you make sure that you have the participants list up on your screen, then what you should hopefully be able to see then is the show all breakout rooms. And when you click on that show all breakout sessions, if you want to join the coding room, then click on that now, please. If you'd like to stay in this room and do a bit more Keynote, you can just stay where you are for the moment. Okay, Miriam, would you like to share your screen again and to go with the Keynote? That'd be fantastic.
Hopefully. So just give me 1 second and hopefully
No problem
it
at all. That's
should
why I dropped
come
you in there.
through. Virtual backgrounds apparently aren't the best idea. Who knew? Share and share. And I have this keynote from earlier, and I also have this example, which is the example, oops, just go back to the start, the example that Matt would have shown and will show in his breakout room. So this was created by Marcella, student of Lindsay Boss in Ireland. And they created this as with the purpose of reminding someone how to take their medication and medical appointments. So when we're looking at this, there's lots of different pages. So if we just go back to the first one here.
Just a second, Miriam, if you'd like to share once more, if that's okay.
Oh.
Can you just share that again once more, please?
1 second.
That's great, thank you.
Sorry. So in here we have hospital appointments and we have the first screen of the app. So this app, as I said, was created by a student here in Ireland, not one of my students, but a student in a school here. And this idea behind this app is that it will help this person to remember their appointments. So this might be an elderly person using it, or anybody. I know I would use an app that would help me remember how to do everything. So this first page is a landing page, and then we have things like she has an appointment coming up in the hospital next week, and then another appointment, and then she has to take all her pills. And maybe you want to call someone in a hurry. If we look at the end, there is that big call button, which is nice because it's big, it's visual, it's really easy to find. So that's right in there. And if I go through, I'll just give you an overview here. We have your medications. So it tells you what days of the week, quite clear when you're doing that. So Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday, I would guess they have to take this one. I'm not sure whether the gray or the white. So that could be, in terms of accessibility, that could be something that you might need to figure out, because right now using that, I'm not sure whether the gray or the white means the days that they're meant to take something. So I don't know if Steve, you want to point out anything else that you've noticed on that page or on additional pages there?
I think it's when I was looking at this before, it sometimes depends on which device I'm looking on. So on my phone, sometimes it could be nice and bright and it's easy to see, but on a screen now, and I'm sitting away from it, some of the colors are getting a bit close to each other.
Yeah, so I actually found exactly the same. I kind of didn't really notice that when I was looking at it on my own device, and I don't really see it on my iPad in front of me, but when I'm seeing it on that screen, so that could be something. Maybe different versions have different colors or different display colors that you might want to just be wary of when the testing of your app. So then we have other options in here. So there's the age of the person, just extra information. So this is a quick and easy. It's kind of like one of those emergency screens that you might have on your phone with all that medical information. So somebody can open this up and they know exactly who she is, age, blood type, and diabetic. So I guess the blood type there and the diabetic would be really important. And then we have the doctors there. So if I press play, this may or may not be linked. So if I tap on my doctors, it does actually bring up their doctors there. And what a link is there's a few different things in here. And if I tap, I'm just going to edit it. See these little blue dots that you have there with the little arrows? Those are links. So in here, we just click on James Murphy might link to somebody. I'm actually going to go back here and I'm going to link my doctors. So you tap on any cell. So this looks like a text box. It's actually a shape that they have written in. Then you also have text boxes as well, or you have shapes. So any type of shape can be linked. So to do that, I'm just going to remove the link. So I'm going to just delete that. I should have probably removed that previously. So I'm going to click on my doctors, and where do I want it to link to? So it worked. I've just broken the student's prototype, but you learn a lot from breaking them. I want it to link to the next slide. And if I look over here on the left-hand side, you'll see I want to link it to slide 5. So I want to put a link in there and go link to slide and put slide number 5 in there. And that should link. So I'm going to just test that I did that correctly. So I'm going to click on my doctors, and yeah, it worked. So I'll just show you the rest of this one. So this would have been done following the exact same activity that we are sharing and is available on Apple Teacher Learning Center. So when they click on James Murphy, that might link to them calling it. Similarly, you'll see on the left-hand side, there's like a red and a white. So the call ended. They've been hung up on, so that call didn't go anywhere, or maybe they were finished the call. We have calling. So there's a lot of repetition in there, and all that student had to do to make that repetition happen was to duplicate the slide and just change a little bit of text. So whether you're calling, I'm going to say James or Anna, there, it's exactly the same. There's a little bit of a color change. Oh, no, there isn't. That was just my eyes playing tricks on me. I thought there was a color change. There isn't. So yeah, it's the same thing. And if I go down here, again, it's the same. And if you think about any app, there is familiarity in it when you're using it. So it should be okay. and easy for them to use. So if they know what their call screen looks like, their call screen should look the same whether you're calling any one of those, or whether you're calling me or Steve or Matt as well. So if we go in here, there's more options, and then this one I think is their medical settings. There's a home screen that they have in there, and there's other options in there. I'm going to just quickly go back to the prototype that we have and see how this might compare. So where we'd gotten to was this, and we have things like get started and profile in there. We have our calendar, we have our appointments, we have these little arrows that are down in the middle there. So those are just navigation. So you always have to think, if somebody gets into a page in my app, are they going to be able to get it out? You don't want them to have to force quit your app to restart it every single time. And these ones here, so these aren't linked at all. So one kind of easy one to do, and I don't usually link until the end, but if you tap here and if you click link, you can just go back or to the home screen, and you can copy that shape in, and it will bring the link with it. So if I go link to slide, I'm trying to look at my numbers, 37, I think. I want this to link to 37. Yours, if you're doing this with students, it'll probably be linking to slide 1 or 2 if they're doing a new slide. So in here, if that works, I can actually copy that. I'm going to show you how that works there. Copy this, and we'll just, I'm going to delete that, paste that in here, and you'll see that little blue link will come with this. So that will work as well. Now, does it work though? You always have to test these to see if they work, and they do. Yeah, good. I'm always scared until I test them. The other thing I want to show you in this one is that familiarity that I was talking about, and that inclusion and accessibility is with this one. This is what I was doing before I got cut off by my not so great internet. So in here I had a calendar, and the next one I kept the exact same style, but we changed the background and changed it to medical. And then the next one down had my medical appointments, which were a dental check and a haircut. And I just did the exact same buttons in here for the pet appointments. So this person has a few pets, and theirs looks the same. So it's just color differences, but in general, it is that familiarity that is going to hopefully help that older member use the app and use it effectively so that it works okay. And the social, this is another one that I put in, things you want them to be able to have fun as well. So them getting out and about, especially now, when restrictions have been lifted, they want to be able to know, where do I join a sports team, or go and play golf, or watch sports, or just get together. Maybe they like reading and want to join a book club or a theater or travel. So that those are all those options that are in there. So I don't
That's
know if
brilliant, Miriam.
Steve has
It really
anything
is.
you want to add.
Yeah, it's amazing how all these are just made in different shapes. Um, so you know, it is just adding a different shape or adding a different symbol. Um, and I think it's just the fact that the students can make something which looks so real is brilliant, isn't it? It's just putting them all together. How long do you think it would take the students to make a one like this?
I think for mine, I've done it a lot in like previous years, but in the last year as well, like an hour is good to get started. But I also found that if you guide them through it in the hour, chances are they're going to spend their lunch break or some other time, or maybe
Mhm.
some time at home, making it even better. So if you give them the tools and the information to get started, that's all they need, and they have the imagination, and especially if you give them the idea of doing something that they're really interested in. So I know there was mention earlier, someone said maybe they might want to do something about animals or pets. I've had really good examples of that. So I had one last year from a student who wanted to regulate the like dog cat breeding kind of community don't really have apps to test or to check if certain litters are regulated. So they wanted to build one that if you're going to buy a puppy or a kitten, that you'll know that everything is basically okay. And that was a really good one that I had, and that would definitely change our community. I know it's a little different to the idea that we've here about helping older members of the community. But in that case, yeah, it's going to transform kind of pet ownership and make things safe and better for everybody in our local community. So I thought it was a really good example there.
Yes, I think, and it's key to it, them having something they care about. So we've mentioned it from the beginning. That's what really gets them excited. That's what will get them to create their apps. I think
And
also
I
what
think
we,
sorry.
it's okay, Miriam, you finish.
It's just really proud
Mm.
to come up and show. And when this happens and when this is done, all it feels like an app. And for me, the next step for ours is code. So they would go into their playgrounds or develop this further, and having this flashy, nice looking prototype that they are really proud of reminds them why they wanted to make the app in the first place. So they keep going back to us, as well as going back to the brainstorming stages and the planning stages at various different times.
That's great. And what I've really liked about the resources as well to go with this is it keeps bringing it back to making it inclusive for people. So we started off today thinking about different personas and think about people with particular problems. And that's really quite hard for the students because they often think about it just for what would it be like for themselves. And therefore, by thinking about maybe a particular person or, as we mentioned, particular needs of a person, that helps them to then think about how they need to change the design. So yes, it's a great introduction for everybody. Okay, what we're going to do is we shall be rejoined in a moment by our colleagues who have gone to the coding room. But what we're going to do just in this interim period, just as they do come back and rejoin us, is just to remind you of the website itself. So if I take over the screen, if that's okay,
Yeah,
Miriam,
yeah.
and I'll pop us back on here. So as I say, just as we're waiting for our colleagues to rejoin us, what we have is to take you back to the website. So the Apple website, the Apple Teacher Learning Center website. At each stage in here, there is basically some extra hints and things you can do. So we have been doing the prototype part, and Miriam's been showing us how to design those different parts. And you can see, for example, it says talking about 1 to 3 screens, and you can see how with time and enthusiasm the students really do develop that. And next to these different parts, it also has a little plus next to it. So on the website, you can see how it actually says, well, what about the interface, the color and the layout? Those key points Miriam's just been mentioning. What about the text and the visuals? So again, it's helping the students remember they're not just making this for themselves, but also for other people. And again here, are there any groups of people who might have trouble using anything on the screens? Okay, so it mentions quick finger movements might be challenging for somebody. So can you see how there's lots of prompts in there? What we also did was we mentioned the app icon challenge, and it talks about just spending 1 minute to do this, but actually we spent longer, and the students could spend they could spend hours designing their app icons. But by keeping it to maybe a minute, that helps them really focus in and try and get their message across. And at the end of each section, it has this explore more. So if I explore more, you can see how, example, if you wanted to have extra support, then it talks about using the app design journal, or extend, and that's where you really can start to get the students to get into more into the coding and also more into the accessibility. So one of the most wonderful videos you can see is this video in the extend part where it talks about Swan's Quest, Voices in the Dark. And the video shows a person who is visually impaired and have difficulty, obviously, if an app had lots of visuals, how would they access it? It shows the video of the person using one of the accessibility tools called VoiceOver, in which the content and information on the screen is read aloud to the person. So even though the person may have a difficulty or is visually impaired, they can still access this through the accessibility tools, and they can still do this activity. Also, for example, even simple things, as Miriam's used today, she's used icons as well as text. So where a person may have difficulty reading the text, I know at my age now, I think if I have not got my glasses, I might struggle to read that text, but I can see the picture and the icon really helps us to do that. So I'd really recommend to you to have a look at these resources. In the support part, it mentions there using the app design journal. So if I scroll to the very top of our screen here and come to the very, very top of all of this page. Okay, so at the very top of this page, then there are two links just above our timeline. There's the app design journal and there's also the app design workbook. Okay, and what happens is the app design journal is aimed at students. We're talking up to the age maybe of 14, around 14 years old. And that helps them take them through the steps of creating an app in much more detail than we've done today. The other download, the app design workbook, really helps the students if they're starting to use the Swift coding. Okay, so if they're using the Swift coding, then they can find out more about how they can link their app design, which they could create in Keynote, and as they then use that to then actually start to get into the coding. Okay, so hopefully, again, if you want to go and find out more, you can go and look for the app design journal and you can download that and see there's a lot more detail in there, and especially to help you with what we've been doing today, the prototyping part of creating those bits. Okay, so our colleagues from the other group are just coming back together to rejoin us. So I shall go back and I shall pull things together for what we've been doing today.
Yep, we're back. So no trash talk about the coders now.
Absolutely none. No.
We're
Absolutely
just jealous of the fun that you were having in that room. We were having lots of fun too.
Brilliant. So what we've done today is we've been thinking about creating an app for some different people. So we had our personas at the start. So what we'd like you to do is think about the app that either you've begun to make today or the app you might make with your students. Does it fit for these people? Does it fit for people to do with English not their first language? Does it work for people with a visual impairment? Does the app work for people with arthritis? So are the colours okay? Is the contrast good? Our friend Lindsay, who also has done a lot of work with her students, she throws in one at the end, a bit of an extra one. So for example, when the students have finished designing their app and they've created all these different features to make sure it fits for these personas, she throws in an extra one and says, hang on then, what about if the person was, in this case, colorblind? Would your app still work for that user? So it's a great tool just to throw in at the end another sort of, I suppose in the States, Matt, you'd say a curveball, you know, or we could say it's a wild card or something extra, you know, to just to make the students think again about their design. Is it accessible and inclusive to all? So we're going to have to round off now. So we'd really like to say thank you for the going through those different stages. The last bit is to share. And I'm going to ask Miriam just to take us through how you might now share the wonderful things that you've made.
So when you're finished your apps, you want to be able to share them. So these are 3 hashtags we would like you to use, and we would love if you have created anything tonight or are creating them in the near or further away future with your students, that you share them out so that we can see them and that the world can see them, because they are worth sharing. So 3 of these are hashtag everyone can code, hashtag Code Week, and hashtag Apple EDU Chat. Under hashtag Apple EDU Chat, if you search it right now, we have run a few different code chats in the last couple of weeks. Some were hosted by Lindsay and Steve, and this week we had an early learners chat by Mark Folder. So you'll see lots of great coding examples and ideas in there as well.
Brilliant. So what you can do is share what you've done. And Matt, are we going to have a next, or where to next?
I think we are. I think we are. So we're going to have a little little mini quiz again. Here, we're going to just share the screen. All right. So we kind of brainstorm what problem we care about, but where to next? Are you going to try this in class? When do you plan to use this? If you are going to try this in class, and then which piece? Do you plan on using the prototyping piece, the app icon design piece? Maybe you use the coding piece, the Swift Playgrounds piece, and get your students thinking about, okay, we've got our idea for our app, we've got a design, let's figure out now what data we need to capture. Icon design, definitely. That's very cool. Personally, I think the brainstorming piece is amazing, because you always come out with, you'll have kids that are going, oh, I have no real good ideas. And by the end, you'll have more ideas than you can possibly implement. It's always a really exciting part of the development process.
Yeah. It's just on the chat there, Matt. They're saying they can't hear the sound at the moment, but I can hear you okay. Well, I'm not sure if that's the same for
I
everyone.
saw that too. I could hear Miriam okay.
I can hear you.
Thank you. That's great. Loads of great ideas coming in of what to do next. Fantastic.
Excellent. And yeah, actually the coding, conditions, data structures, variables, answers is amazing for that, because you can start to build up these stories that are very complex and say, all right, well, based on an answer I'm going to get from somebody, I can choose to do one thing or another thing. Super fun.
That's great. Wonderful.
Great stuff. All right,
So
well,
sadly, we are running out of time, Matt.
we are.
So
Did you want to talk about talk about some of these resources we have?
We will. We shall just wrap up there, everyone. So sorry to cut our activity short there of finding out what you're doing next. That's great to hear of how you can implement this. If you want to find out more, there's loads of resources on the Apple Education website. So not only can you find out more about the Swift Playgrounds, you can find out more about prototyping an app using the resources, and also the using Xcode to actually code an app, which could go to the App Store. So again, your students could be making apps, which you can follow the materials. There's teaching books, teaching resources, and student books to help them create their own app and get that published. Also, what we've got is we have the EU Code Week. So just to take you back to this website, all the things we've been doing today are on that website. And again, there's great advice in there. Not only can you follow what we've done, but there's support and extension ideas as well. which leaves us just to say a huge thank you. So thank you all for coming today. Miriam and Matt and I had great fun putting all this together, and we're going to hand over to finish just back to Patrice and Eugenia. So if that's okay. So thank you from us.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and we'll hand back over.
And from our side, we just want to quickly say thanks a lot for this workshop today. It has been really interesting. So thank you, Matt, thank you, Steve, thank you, Miriam, very much for this very interesting workshop. To everyone, we hope that you have enjoyed it. We hope that you continue working in Code Week and that this has given you some motivation and some ideas on how to participate in Code Week. So we encourage you to follow through, to join Code Week, and also to keep coding with your students and designing great apps that also serve great purposes. So thank you very much from our side as well, and thank you especially to the three of you. We look forward to seeing each other online or around Code Week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.